Amara Chen was 42 years old, with deep amber eyes that concealed years of silent suffering. As an Asian American woman from a prominent Boston family, she carried herself with quiet grace. Yet behind closed doors, those same people who celebrated her generosity whispered cruel names. Her husband, Derek Whitmore, was among the worst offenders. That September morning, their Beacon Hill estate smelled of imported orchids and artisan espresso. The morning sun filtered through crystal chandeliers, casting rainbow patterns across marble floors that cost more than most people's homes. It was Derek's birthday, and the mansion buzzed with careful preparation. The private chef, Andre, had been working since dawn, preparing Derek's favorite brunch: truffle eggs Benedict, imported Belgian waffles, and fresh-pressed mimosas with champagne that cost $800 per bottle. Amara had personally selected every detail, from the white roses arranged in Waterford crystal vases to the playlist of classical music humming softly through hidden speakers. And then there was the gift. Amara had spent weeks finding the perfect present, a limited edition Patek Philippe Nautilus watch worth $180,000. Not because Derek valued time, but because he valued status. Every flash of that watch face in campaign photos would scream wealth, power, legitimacy. Derek, 5 years younger than Amara, was a rising congressional candidate with political ambitions that stretched all the way to the Senate. Charismatic in public, calculating in private. His smile could light up a room, but his eyes remained cold, always assessing, always strategizing. They'd been married 11 years. No children, though everyone kept asking. No scandals, though rumors circulated. No warmth, though they posed for photographs with practiced affection. Sometimes Amara wondered if the love had ever been real, or if she'd imagined it like a mirage in the desert, beautiful from a distance. Empty up close, at exactly 10:16 a.m., Amara descended the grand spiral staircase, her heels clicking softly against imported Italian marble. She wore a cream silk blouse and tailored black pants, elegant, understated, invisible. In her hands, she carried a cream envelope embossed with gold lettering. Inside was a certificate for a $150,000 donation to the National Youth Foundation, made entirely in Derek's name. She'd chosen this charity carefully. It would look perfect in his campaign materials, compassionate, forward-thinking, invested in America's future. Derek would love it. He loved anything that made him look generous without actually requiring generosity from his soul. The formal dining room was empty when she arrived, but voices drifted from the adjacent library. She paused instinctively, her hand on the doorframe. Old habits from years of navigating this household. Always listening, always careful, always trying to anticipate his moods. Through the crack in the partially open door, she could see Derek's profile. He was pouring scotch despite the early hour, his expensive suit jacket draped carelessly over a leather armchair. His mother, Victoria Whitmore, sat across from him in her usual position of power. Spine straight, pearls perfect, lips pursed in that expression of permanent disapproval. And then Amara heard it. The words that would shatter her carefully constructed world. "That fat whale disgusts me, Mother," Derek said, his voice dripping with contempt as he laughed coldly. "I only married her for the trust fund. Did you actually think I enjoyed touching her? I close my eyes and think of the stock portfolio." Amara's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers tightened on the envelope until the expensive paper crumpled slightly. Victoria Whitmore showed no surprise. Her response came as if confirming something obvious, something they'd discussed many times before. "At least pretend, Derek. Maintain the charade until the inheritance fully transfers. After that, well, accidents happen. Car crashes. Unfortunate illnesses. You can't be tied to that bloated disappointment forever. Do you want to be photographed with a woman who looks like she swallowed a buffet table?" Their laughter echoed through the hallway. Casual, careless, cruel. They laughed with the ease of people who felt no shame about their cruelty, no fear of consequences. Amara stood frozen. The envelope slipped from her fingers without a sound, landing softly on the Persian rug. Her face didn't change. Years of practiced composure held firm. But her legs trembled slightly, as if the ground beneath her had suddenly turned to quicksand. She didn't gasp. She didn't cry out. She didn't storm into the room with righteous fury. She simply backed away, one careful step at a time. She climbed the stairs without her Louboutin heels making a single sound, walked down the long hallway past family portraits that had never felt like family, and closed her bedroom door with the gentle click of someone who had just made the most important decision of her life. She didn't cry. Not yet. She didn't scream. Not yet. She didn't confront them. Not ever. Instead, she sat on the edge of her bed, the bed she'd shared with a man who fantasized about her death, and she began to plan. That evening, dinner was served at precisely 7 p.m., as it had been every night for 11 years. The table was set with Wedgwood china, baccarat crystal, and Georgian silver. Candlelight flickered across 3 carefully arranged place settings. Amara descended the stairs in a different outfit, a deep burgundy dress that Derek had once said made her look almost elegant, if you ignore the obvious. Her makeup was flawless, her smile warm and practiced. She'd been rehearsing this performance all afternoon. Derek stood when she entered, ever the gentleman in public spaces. "Darling, you look lovely. Thank you, sweetheart. Happy birthday." She presented his gift with both hands, the blue Patek Philippe box glowing under the chandelier light. Derek's eyes lit up, not with love but with acquisition. He opened it slowly, savoring the moment. "My God, Amara, is this the Nautilus 5711? Limited edition. Only 50 made this year." He slipped it onto his wrist immediately, turning his arm to catch the light. "This will photograph beautifully at the fundraiser next week. Not, I love it. Not, thank you for thinking of me. Just calculation about its use." Victoria Whitmore arrived fashionably late, sweeping into the dining room in Chanel and Cartier. She air-kissed Amara's cheeks, both sides, European style, without actually touching skin. "Amara, darling, you've outdone yourself with the table setting, although—" She paused, her eyes scanning Amara's figure with surgical precision. "Have you met my nutritionist? Dr. Renfrew works absolute miracles. Just last month, she helped Senator Morrison's wife lose 40 pounds before his re-election campaign. You might want to consider it, especially with Derek's congressional race coming up. The camera does add 10 pounds, and you're starting with, well..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Derek laughed. A genuine, delighted laugh. Victoria continued, "The wine tonight is exceptional, by the way. 1982 Chateau Margaux. Costs more per bottle than some people make in a month." She took a delicate sip, then added casually, "You know, Amara, you really should try Dr. Renfrew's program. Image matters so much in politics." Everyone laughed, everyone except Amara. She smiled serenely, cut her chicken into precise, tiny pieces she had no intention of eating, and watched them both. Really watched them. She studied Derek's animated gestures as he described his latest poll numbers. She observed Victoria's calculated glances, the way her eyes constantly assessed, judged, calculated. These people wanted her dead, and they were laughing about it over a $2,000 bottle of wine. "A toast," Derek announced, raising his glass. "To family, to loyalty, to the future." "To the future," Amara echoed, her voice steady as stone. She clinked her crystal glass against theirs and smiled. Inside, she was already gone. Past midnight, the house was finally silent. Derek had passed out in the master suite after too much scotch and self-congratulation. Victoria had retired to the guest wing, her usual accommodation when she stayed over to help with campaign strategy. Amara walked barefoot through their mansion, her bare feet silent on cold marble floors. She moved through rooms like a ghost visiting her own haunting. She studied every corner with new eyes, not as her home, but as evidence of a life that had never truly been hers. The sitting room held a Monet she'd purchased at Sotheby's. Derek had insisted on it for the prestige, never once asking if she liked it. The library contained first editions she'd collected herself but was never allowed time to read. The music room held a Steinway concert grand that Derek bought for atmosphere, but forbade her from playing because the noise annoyed him. Every object was a silent witness to years of suffocation. In Derek's study, the one room she was discouraged from entering, She sat at his mahogany desk and pulled out a single sheet of his personal stationery, heavy cream-colored paper with his monogram embossed in navy blue. She wrote in steady, deliberate handwriting, "Thank you for showing me the truth." She signed it without a name. Just a period. Final. Then she folded it carefully and set it aside. She opened her laptop, her personal one, not the household computer that Derek's assistant monitored. Her fingers flew across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. Amara had managed her family's hedge fund and real estate portfolio since her father's death. She understood offshore accounts, shell corporations, cryptocurrency transfers, and the invisible pathways money could travel. She knew exactly how to move wealth without leaving traces that conventional investigators could follow. Within 90 minutes, she had contacted a discreet Swiss private banker she'd vetted years ago for estate planning, transferred $47 million from her various trust funds to a new account in Zurich under the identity Nina M. Rivers, liquidated stocks and bonds through her personal broker with instructions to wire proceeds to multiple international accounts, sold 3 investment properties through a shell corporation to a buyer in Singapore, arranged for the Beacon Hill mansion to be sold to a foreign investor for $22 million, with proceeds going directly to Switzerland. Derek's name was on nothing. The prenuptial agreement he'd insisted on, designed to protect his political image, had ironically protected all of her family wealth. Legally, every asset was hers alone. Even his designer suits had been purchased with her credit cards. By 4:47 a.m., the transfers were complete. Nearly $70 million had vanished from American financial systems, scattered across accounts that would take years for investigators to trace, if they ever could. By 5:15 a.m., Amara Chen was gone. She'd changed into dark jeans, a simple black sweater, and worn sneakers she'd hidden in the back of her closet. Her long black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. No styling, no product, just plain. She carried only a small backpack containing her legitimate passport, $15,000 in cash, a prepaid phone with no contacts, a change of clothes, basic toiletries, a faded photograph of herself at 19, standing on a California beach with her arms spread wide. Before the Whitmore name had turned her into a trophy, no jewelry, no designer bags, no trace of the Amara Chen who'd graced magazine covers and charity galas. She used the service entrance, the one the staff used, the one with no security cameras because Derek had never imagined she'd use it. She walked 3 blocks in the pre-dawn darkness, then caught a cab to South Station using cash. No servants saw her leave. No security footage captured her departure. She simply disappeared. 4:42 a.m. Derek woke with a pounding headache and cotton mouth. He reached across the bed automatically, expecting to find Amara's side warm. Instead, the sheets were cold. "Amara," he called out, his voice rough. "Babe?" No response. He checked his phone. No messages. No missed calls. Nothing. He got up, threw on a robe, and began searching. The bathroom, empty. Her closet, all her expensive clothes still hanging in neat rows, but something felt off. The dressing room, her jewelry boxes unopened on the vanity. "Amara!" He shouted, louder now. The house echoed back his own voice. He jogged downstairs in bare feet, checking room after room. The kitchen, no sign of breakfast preparation. The gym, empty. The garden, only the groundskeeper trimming hedges. Panic began creeping into his chest. He returned to the bedroom, and that's when he saw it. A cream-colored envelope on his pillow. His own monogrammed stationery. He tore it open. "Thank you for showing me the truth." That was all. No explanation. No signature. Just that single cryptic sentence. Derek stared at it, his mind racing through possibilities. A tantrum? Emotional nonsense? Some kind of dramatic gesture demanding attention? He called her cell phone. Straight to voicemail. Disconnected. He sent texts. "Where are you?" "This isn't funny. Call me immediately." No response. No read receipt. Nothing. His phone rang. His mother. "Derek, where is Amara? I came down for breakfast and the staff says she's not here." "I don't know, Mom. She left a weird note." "What kind of note?" "It says, 'Thank you for showing me the truth.' What the hell does that mean?" There was a long pause on the other end. Then Victoria's voice, quieter than usual. "Derek, You don't think she heard us yesterday, do you? A chill ran down Derek's spine. No, impossible. We were alone in the library. The door was closed. The door was ajar. I remember seeing it partially open. She couldn't have... No. She would have said something. She would have confronted us. That's not how Amara operates. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. Find her, Victoria commanded. Today, before this becomes a problem. Derek hung up and immediately called his campaign manager, his chief of staff, and finally his personal attorney. Richard, I need you to track Amara's movements. Credit cards, phone records, everything. Is there a problem, Derek? Just do it, quietly. 1:30 a.m., Derek's attorney called back. His voice was tense. Derek, we have a significant problem. What kind of problem? Your house has been sold. What? That's impossible. I would have had to sign... The house is entirely in Amara's name. The prenup you insisted on kept all her family assets separate from yours. She had every legal right to sell it without your knowledge or consent. Derek felt the floor drop out from under him. When? The sale was finalized at 4:47 this morning. Wire transfer of $22 million to a Swiss account. The buyer is a foreign corporation. Very discreet, very legal. And her other accounts? There was a longer pause. Gone. Liquidated. Transferred. I'm talking about roughly $70 million that's vanished from our financial systems in the last 12 hours. Derek, she planned this meticulously. Can we freeze the accounts? Get a court order? On what grounds? It's her money. She broke no laws. She just left. Derek stood in his study. No, not his study, he realized with growing horror. Amara's study in Amara's house that he no longer had any legal claim to, and understood for the first time that he had nothing. His entire life had been built on her wealth. And she'd taken it all. The media started calling. Somehow, Derek suspected a leak from his own campaign staff. Word had gotten out. A finance reporter from the Boston Globe called his cell phone directly. Mr. Whitmore, can you comment on reports that your wife has disappeared and liquidated substantial assets? No comment. Is it true you're under investigation for campaign finance violations? Who told you that? Multiple sources. Can you confirm or deny? Derek hung up. Within an hour, the story had exploded. News vans appeared outside the mansion. Reporters called his campaign office, his attorney, his mother. Social media erupted with speculation. Whitmore wife trending. Political wife vanishes with family fortune. Is Derek Whitmore involved in his wife's disappearance? Sources say Amara Chen feared for her safety. The conspiracy theories multiplied by the minute. Meanwhile, 50 miles away, Amara sat on a Greyhound bus, watching Boston disappear in the rearview mirror. She wore cheap sunglasses from a gas station and had her hair tucked under a Red Sox cap, the ultimate disguise in Yankee territory. The bus smelled of diesel fuel and stale fast food. An elderly man snored across the aisle. A young mother wrestled with 2 toddlers. A teenager listened to music too loud through broken headphones. Normal people, regular people, people who knew nothing about trust funds and charity galas and marriages that were really just business transactions with sexual obligations. For the first time in 11 years, nobody was watching her. Nobody was judging her body, her clothes, her words. Nobody expected anything from her. She pulled out her old photograph, 19-year-old Amara on Manhattan Beach, arms spread wide like she could embrace the whole ocean. She'd taken that photo the summer, before she met Derek, before her father had introduced her to a promising young man from an excellent family. She'd been free then. And somehow, impossibly, she was free again. The bus rolled on toward Chicago, toward a neighborhood called Southside, toward a life where Amara Chen didn't exist and Nina Rivers was about to be born. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, slept without nightmares. Chicago Southside, 11:47 p.m. The Greyhound bus screeched to a stop at a dimly lit terminal on 95th Street. The driver's voice crackled through the intercom. Last stop, Southside. Everybody off. Nina now, gathered her single backpack and stepped onto the street. The September air was different here, cooler, grittier, real. The neighborhood stretched before her in shades of gray and brown. Southside wasn't poor. it was wounded. Every building told a story of survival. Chain-link fences surrounded small yards. Corner stores had bars on the windows. But there was life here. Loud music from passing cars, the smell of barbecue and hot oil, kids laughing somewhere in the distance despite the late hour. She walked with no destination, just instinct. After 3 blocks, she saw it, a handwritten sign taped to a chain-link fence. Room for rent. Shared bath. No questions asked. $400 a month. Nina knocked on the door of the 2-story brick house. Paint peeled from the window frames. The porch sagged slightly, but the windows were clean, and flowers grew in cracked pots by the steps. An elderly black woman answered, her weathered face immediately suspicious. She wore a house dress and slippers, reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. Looking for something? The room. I saw your sign. I can pay up front. The woman studied her from head to toe. Something didn't fit. Posture too straight, skin too well-maintained, hands too soft for this neighborhood. Name? Nina hesitated for only a heartbeat. Nina Rivers. That's a strange name. Where are you from? East Coast. Lost everything in an investment fraud. I'm starting over. The woman's eyes narrowed, but her expression softened slightly. I'm Mrs. Dorothea Price, but everyone calls me Miss Dot. I don't give refunds. I don't tolerate drugs or stealing, and I don't like trouble. You bring in trouble? No, ma'am. Just trying to survive. Miss Dot nodded slowly. First and last month, cash. Rooms upstairs, second door. Bathrooms shared with 2 other tenants. No men overnight. No loud music after 10. Nina pulled out $800, careful not to show how much more cash she carried, and counted it into Miss Dot's weathered palm. Welcome to Southside, Nina Rivers. Hope you find what you're looking for. The room was tiny. A single bed with a thin mattress, a dresser with a cracked mirror, a ceiling fan that rattled like it might fall, one window with a view of the alley. The walls were stained with old water damage, and the paint was the color of old newspapers. To Nina, it looked like paradise. She locked the door, sat on the bed, and finally allowed herself to cry. Deep, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. She cried for the years wasted, for the woman she'd buried beneath designer clothes and fake smiles, for the girl in the photograph who'd trusted the wrong man, but she also cried with relief. Because for the first time in over a decade, she was nobody's wife, nobody's disappointment, nobody's trophy or target. She was just Nina, and that was enough. The next morning, Nina woke at dawn out of habit, then remembered she had nowhere to be. No breakfast to oversee, no appearance to maintain, nothing. She explored the neighborhood on foot. Southside revealed itself slowly, a patchwork of survival and community. She passed a corner store where men gathered to play dominoes and argue, about the Cubs A church with a sign offering free meals on Wednesdays, a barbershop that doubled as a community center, women sweeping sidewalks, while children played around their feet murals on brick walls commemorating lost loved ones saw. Gardens behind chain-link fences, vegetables growing in defiant abundance. Everyone looked at her with curiosity. She was new, she was different, she didn't fit. But nobody bothered her. In this neighborhood, people minded their business. Everyone had their own struggles. She found a small community health clinic on 87th Street. The facade was peeling badly. A hand-painted sign read, Southside Community Health Center. No one turned away. Inside was chaos. Broken plastic chairs in the waiting room, stained linoleum floors, walls that needed paint. But it was clean. Someone cared enough to mop and organize, even if they couldn't afford renovations. A woman was arguing at the makeshift reception desk, really just a folding table with a laptop. She held a little boy's hand, her voice desperate. Ma'am, I already told you we don't have that antibiotic in stock. A male voice responded, patient but firm. If you buy it at the pharmacy on 95th, I can't guarantee it's authentic. There are counterfeits floating around, but if you come back tomorrow, I'll have called in favors and gotten you the real medication. Nina watched from near the door. The man speaking was tall, maybe late 30s, with disheveled dark brown hair and the kind of exhaustion that comes from years of too much work and too little hope. He wore scrubs that had been washed so many times they were nearly gray. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but his voice carried warmth despite his obvious fatigue. The woman thanked him with tears in her eyes and left with her son. The man noticed Nina standing there. "Do you need medical attention?" "No, I saw your sign." No one turned away. I came to volunteer. I have experience in organizational management, inventory systems, coordinating donations. I could help. He studied her carefully. Something about the way she spoke, educated, articulate, controlled, didn't match the story her clothes told. Experience managing what? Nina thought fast. Corporate logistics. Before I lost everything. Lost everything how? Investment fraud. My partner emptied our accounts and disappeared. Technically true, just reversed. The man nodded slowly, then extended his hand. "I'm Dr. Julian Cross. I run this place with volunteers and prayer. We're always short on supplies, organization, and hands. If you're serious about helping, we could use you." "I'm serious. Welcome to Southside Health, Nina. Fair warning, it's chaos here. We serve about 200 patients a week with a budget that should cover maybe 50. We're understaffed, undersupplied, and constantly on the edge of closing. But we don't turn anyone away." "That's exactly why I want to help," Nina said quietly. And so it began. Weeks later, Nina's days developed a rhythm completely unlike anything she'd known before. She woke early in her tiny room, dressed in thrift store clothes, and walked 6 blocks to the clinic. She learned to fold stained sheets and make them last longer between donations, organize expired medications by severity. Some could still be used safely past dates called pharmaceutical. Reps and beg for samples, coordinate food drives from local churches, comfort frightened children while Julian examined them, translate for Spanish-speaking patients, her high school Spanish, rusty but functional. Clean exam rooms with industrial bleach, accept donated medical supplies, and assess what was usable. No one asked about her past. In this neighborhood, everyone carried secrets and scars. What mattered was what you did today, not who you'd been yesterday. Julian watched her carefully. She moved through the clinic with quiet competence, but he noticed things. The way she instinctively organized supplies by pharmaceutical value, suggesting expensive medical knowledge. How she spoke to wealthy donors on the phone with practiced ease. Her posture and diction that suggested years of expensive education. But he didn't push. Everyone deserved a fresh start. It was during her 3rd week that Nina met Sophia. The girl was 8 years old, with dark curly hair that should have been bouncy but hung limp against her skull. Her skin had a grayish pallor. Her eyes were huge and dark, and seemed to hold too much knowledge for a child. She sat on the exam table, her head resting on the shoulder of an elderly woman with kind eyes and weathered hands. "Miss Clara," Julian said gently, "tell me what's happening." "She hasn't eaten in 3 days, doctor. She has fever every night. And look, her skin is getting so pale." Julian conducted a careful examination while Nina watched from the doorway. She saw his face change, the way his jaw tightened, the way his eyes closed briefly in a gesture she recognized as someone bracing for bad news. He stepped out into the hallway, and Nina followed. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Julian leaned against the wall, rubbing his face. "I suspect leukemia, acute lymphoblastic maybe. But I need lab work to confirm, and those tests cost about $3,000 that we absolutely don't have." Nina looked through the door. Sophia was playing with a one-armed doll, humming softly, whispering secrets to it. "What happens without the tests? We wait and watch and hope I'm wrong, but I'm probably not. And if you're right, then that little girl needs treatment that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Treatment this clinic can't provide and her family can't afford." Nina felt something crack inside her chest. She'd written checks for charity galas where they served $500 per plate dinners. She'd bid $75,000 at an auction for a sculpture she didn't want, just because other wives were watching. She'd spent more on a single handbag than it would cost to save this child's life. "I'll find the money," Nina heard herself say. Julian looked at her. "Nina, I appreciate the thought, but I said I'll find it. Give me 3 days." Something in her voice made him stop arguing. Miss Clara found Nina in the supply closet later that afternoon, organizing bandages. The old woman closed the door behind her. "You're not from here," Miss Clara said. "Not a question. I'm from a lot of places. Your hands are clean. Your nails are manicured, even though you're trying to hide it. Your back is straight. Life here bends people over." Nina didn't respond. Miss Clara stepped closer. "I'm not judging you, child. I had my secrets when I was young, too. I'm just saying, when a woman is hiding something, she needs to choose very carefully who she lets see her. Because some eyes only look for flesh, and others look for souls. Which kind does Dr. Cross have?" Miss Clara smiled. "The second kind, which makes him dangerous in a different way. He'll see the truth eventually. Question is, will you be ready to tell it?" She left Nina alone with her thoughts and her secrets. That night, in her tiny rented room, Nina opened her backpack and carefully removed a small velvet pouch she'd hidden in a hidden pocket. Inside was a single piece of jewelry she hadn't been able to part with, her grandmother's ring, platinum band. 3-carat sapphire, surrounded by diamonds, appraised value, $185,000. Her grandmother had given it to her on her 16th birthday with simple instructions. Only sell this if you absolutely must save a life. Otherwise, pass it to your daughter. Nina had no daughter, but Sophia needed saving. She held the ring up to the single bare light bulb, watching it sparkle. Then she closed her fist around it. The next morning, Nina took a bus to downtown Chicago to the Diamond District on Wabash Avenue. She found a reputable dealer, the kind that didn't ask questions, but paid fair prices. The jeweler examined the ring through his loupe for several minutes. "Where did you get this?" "It was my grandmother's. It's extraordinary. The sapphire is Burmese, unheated, internally flawless. The diamonds are VS1 clarity. This is easily worth $180,000, possibly more at auction. I need cash today." "Cash? I can do $155,000 cash? Right now." Nina thought of Sophia's pale face, her one-armed doll, her whispered secrets. Done. The jeweler counted out $100 bills in neat stacks. Nina put the money in her backpack, rode the bus back to Southside, and walked directly to the clinic. Julian was in his small office, surrounded by unpaid bills. Nina dropped a sealed envelope on his desk. He opened it. His face went white. "Nina, where did you—" "It doesn't matter. Get Sophia the tests. Get her the treatment. Do whatever needs to be done. This is $155,000. I know how much it is. Use it." Julian stood up slowly, looking at her with new eyes. "Who are you, really?" "Someone who lost everything," Nina said. "And that's all you need to know." She walked out before he could ask more questions. But Julian Cross was not a stupid man. He'd been fired years ago from a prestigious hospital for refusing to cover up prescription fraud involving powerful families. He'd lost everything to tell the truth. And now this woman, this mysterious, elegant, educated woman claiming to be broke, had just produced more cash than his clinic saw in a year. That night, after the clinic closed, Julian sat at his ancient desktop computer and did something he'd been avoiding for weeks. He typed into Google, "Investment fraud East Coast woman disappeared 2024. The first result made his blood run cold. Amara Chen, wife of congressional candidate Derek Whitmore, missing after mysterious mansion sale. 70 million transferred offshore. Authorities investigating." He clicked on the image search. And there she was. The same face, the same eyes, just better dressed and wearing makeup. Amara Chen at a charity gala. Amara Chen at a political fundraiser. Amara Chen on her wedding day, wearing a dress that probably cost more than his medical school loans. Nina Rivers didn't exist. She was a ghost, a fiction, a mask. But everything she'd done here was real. The work, the compassion, the sacrifice. She'd sold her grandmother's ring to save a dying child she barely knew. Julian leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He had to decide, confront her or protect her secret. Because Derek Whitmore was all over the news now. Campaign scandal, financial investigation, questions about his missing wife. And Julian knew exactly where that wife was. The question was, what would he do with that knowledge? The next morning, Julian found Nina sitting on the front steps of the clinic, her notebook in her hands. She wasn't writing, just holding it like a shield. The morning sun cast long shadows across the cracked sidewalk. "We need to talk," Julian said without preamble. She looked up. Her eyes showed no surprise. Somehow she'd known this moment was coming. "Yes," she replied quietly. "I suppose we do. Not here. Let's walk." They walked in silence for 3 blocks until they reached an abandoned warehouse on the continuation from... edge of the neighborhood. Graffiti covered the walls. Broken windows stared down like empty eyes, but it was private. Julian turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "I know who you are, Amara. Nina." Amara didn't flinch. She'd been expecting this. "How long have you known?" "Since last night. I searched online after you gave me that money. The timing, the amount, the way you carry yourself, it all made sense." She waited for what came next. The demand, the threat, the betrayal. That's what people did when they discovered secrets with value. Instead, Julian asked, "Did he hurt you?" The question caught her completely off guard. Not, "Why did you steal the money?" Not, "Are you a criminal?" Just concern about whether she'd been hurt. "Not physically," she answered honestly. "But yes, in every other way that matters." Julian nodded slowly. "I read about him. Derek Whitmore, rising political star, perfect image. The media's painting you as either a victim or a thief, depending on which channel you watch." "What do you think I am?" He studied her face for a long moment. "I think you're someone who finally found the courage to save herself. And I think whatever you left behind, you earned the right to take." Amara felt tears prick her eyes. She'd expected judgment, accusations, perhaps even blackmail. Not understanding, not compassion. "Are you going to tell anyone?" she asked. "Are you planning to hurt anyone here?" "No, never." "Then your secret is safe with me. On one condition." Here it comes, she thought. The price. Everyone had one. What condition? "Don't disappear on us. Sophia needs that treatment, and she trusts you. This clinic needs you. These people need you. So, whatever you're running from, don't let it make you run from this." Amara looked at this exhausted doctor with his worn scrubs and kind eyes. And she understood why Miss Clara had warned her about him. He was dangerous because he made her want to stay. "Want to be real? Want to be Nina Rivers instead of running again?" "I'll stay," she promised, "as long as I can. That's all I'm asking." They walked back to the clinic in comfortable silence. But both knew the clock was ticking. Secrets had a way of surfacing, no matter how carefully you buried them. 3 weeks later, Sophia's lab results came back positive. Acute lymphoblastic leukemia, just as Julian had suspected. But they'd caught it early, and with the money Nina had provided, Sophia began treatment at University of Chicago Medical Center. Nina visited her every other day, bringing books and small toys. Sophia called her Miss Nina and held her hand during the frightening parts. "Why are you helping me?" Sophia asked one afternoon, her voice weak from chemotherapy. "Because someone should have helped me when I was young," Nina answered honestly, and didn't. The clinic was transforming too. With careful budgeting of the remaining funds, Julian had purchased new equipment, hired a part-time nurse, and established relationships with pharmaceutical companies for regular supply donations. Nina worked 12-hour days, managing logistics, coordinating volunteers, and slowly building something that felt like purpose. She'd gone from hosting charity galas to actually creating change, and the difference was staggering. But Boston hadn't forgotten her. Meanwhile, in Boston, Derek Whitmore's campaign was imploding. The media had turned him from golden boy to cautionary tale. Questions about his wife's disappearance dominated every interview. His poll numbers plummeted. His mother, Victoria, had hired a private investigator, Marcus Reeves, a former FBI agent with a reputation for finding people who didn't want to be found. "I don't care what it costs," Victoria told him in her Beacon Hill penthouse. "Find her, quietly, and find out what she knows." "What exactly are you worried she knows, Mrs. Whitmore?" Marcus asked carefully. Victoria's expression hardened. "That's privileged information. Just find her. Bring me proof of where she is and what she's doing. We'll handle the rest." Marcus had been tracking Amara's digital footprint for weeks. The trail went cold in Boston, but he'd found something interesting. A large cash withdrawal from a diamond district dealer in Chicago. Dated exactly 2 weeks after her disappearance, someone had sold a very expensive sapphire ring. He had a lead. Back in Chicago, Nina was closing the clinic one evening when Julian stopped her. "There's something I need to show you," he said, his face troubled. He led her to his office and pulled up a news article on his computer. The headline read, "Private investigators searching for Amara Chen Whitmore. Family offers reward." Nina's hands trembled slightly. "How much?" $50,000 for information leading to your location." She sat down heavily. "They're really coming for me. The question is why? If you left legally, took only what was yours, they have no grounds to force you back." "It's not about the money, Julian. It's about what I heard. What I know. Which is?" She'd kept this secret for weeks, but looking at Julian's concerned face, she realized she needed to tell someone. To trust someone. "The morning I left, I overheard my husband and his mother planning my death. Not metaphorically, literally discussing how to murder me and make it look like an accident so Derek could inherit my trust fund and continue his political career without the embarrassment of a fat wife." Julian's face went pale. "Jesus Christ, Amara!" They laughed about it, like they were planning a vacation. "That's when I knew, if I stayed, I was dead. The only question was when and how. Did you record it? Do you have proof?" "No, I just ran. I should have recorded it, I know. But in that moment, all I could think about was survival." Julian was quiet for a long moment. "If they find you, I know. We need to protect you. Maybe we should contact the authorities, tell them what you heard." "And say what?" "I overheard a conversation I can't prove happened. My husband is a congressional candidate from a powerful family. I'm the wife who stole money and disappeared. Who do you think they'll believe?" She was right, and they both knew it. "So what do we do?" Julian asked. "We live carefully, and we hope they never find me." But hope, they would both learn, was not a strategy. 2 days later, Marcus Reeves arrived in Southside Chicago with a photograph and a hunch. He'd traced the sapphire ring sale, cross-referenced donation records, and found an anomaly: a $155,000 donation to Southside Community Health Center, made anonymously just days after the ring sale. He parked his rental car on 95th Street and watched the clinic, waiting, observing. And then he saw her. She'd cut her hair shorter. She wore no makeup. Her clothes were thrift store plain, but the way she moved, the graceful posture, the careful awareness, it was unmistakably Amara Chen. She was carrying a box of medical supplies into the clinic, laughing at something an elderly woman said. Marcus took 3 photographs with his telephoto lens. Clear, unmistakable evidence. He could call Victoria Whitmore right now, collect his $50,000, end this job. But something made him pause. He'd investigated dozens of missing persons cases. Some were running from the law, some from debts, some from themselves, and some were running for their lives. Marcus had learned to recognize the difference. The way Amara kept checking over her shoulder. The way she never used a cell phone. The way she'd erased herself so completely. This wasn't a woman running from consequences. This was a woman running from danger. He sat in his car for another hour, watching. He saw her comfort a crying child, saw her organize volunteers with quiet authority, saw her smile, genuinely smile, in a way none of the Boston Society photos had ever captured. Finally, he made a decision. He walked into the clinic. Nina looked up from the reception desk and froze. She knew instantly what he was: the bearing, the careful observation, the professional assessment. "Law enforcement or close to it. Can I help you?" she asked, her voice carefully neutral. "I'm looking for someone," Marcus said quietly. "Someone who might need to know that she's been found." The clinic was busy. Patients everywhere. No privacy. Julian appeared from an exam room, immediately sensing tension. "Is there a problem?" Marcus looked between them. "Is there somewhere private we can talk?" They ended up in Julian's cramped office, the 3 of them barely fitting. Marcus spoke first. "My name is Marcus Reeves. I'm a private investigator hired by Victoria Whitmore to locate her daughter-in-law, and I've found her. Nina's face went pale, but her voice stayed steady. Are you here to take me back? That depends. Why did you run? That's none of your business. Actually, it is. Because before I make any calls, I need to know if I'm hunting a criminal or protecting a victim. Julian stepped forward. She's not a criminal. And if you knew what she was running from, then tell me, Marcus interrupted. Because right now I have a paying client expecting information, and I have a woman who vanished with $70 million. Help me understand which side I should be on. Nina looked at Julian, who nodded encouragement. She took a deep breath and told Marcus everything. The overheard conversation, the murder plot, the years of emotional abuse, her calculated escape. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Can you prove any of this? He finally asked. No. It's my word against theirs. That's a problem. Because without evidence, this becomes a he said, she said situation. And Derek Whitmore has a lot more credibility right now than you do. So you're taking me back. It wasn't a question. I didn't say that. Nina looked at him, confused. Marcus leaned forward. 20 years ago, I was an FBI agent investigating a senator for corruption. I had evidence, I had witnesses, I had everything I needed. But the senator had powerful friends. My case was buried. I was fired. And 6 months later, 3 of my witnesses were dead in accidents. He paused, his jaw tight. I learned something that year. Sometimes the law protects the wrong people, and sometimes people like me need to choose what kind of justice we believe in. What are you saying? Julian asked carefully. I'm saying that I found nothing in Chicago. My investigation hit a dead end. Amara Chen Whitmore remains missing, whereabouts unknown. That's my official report. Nina felt tears slide down her face. Why would you do that? Because I've seen this story before, and I'm tired of seeing it end badly. He stood up. But you need to be more careful. If I found you, someone else will eventually. What should I do? Marcus pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my personal cell phone. If you ever feel unsafe, if anyone suspicious shows up, you call me immediately. I may not be FBI anymore, but I still have contacts. Thank you, Nina whispered. Don't thank me yet. Staying hidden is harder than running. You'll need to be smarter, more careful. No social media. No contact with anyone from your old life. No patterns that can be tracked. I understand. Marcus headed for the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Miss Rivers, I hope you find whatever you're looking for here. God knows you've earned it. After he left, Julian and Nina sat in stunned silence. Do you trust him? Julian finally asked. I have to. We don't have another choice. But even as she said it, Nina knew the clock was ticking faster now. Marcus Reeves might have chosen silence, but Victoria Whitmore would hire others. Eventually, someone would find her who didn't believe in second chances. The question was, how much time did she have left? To be continued.